each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order. I want to take this time to shout out Redline Shipping. They are the #1 fastest growing reptile and animal shipping company in the world right now, and that is for good reason. Use promo code GECKO5 today at checkout for an additional $5 off your shipping label.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Geeky Gecko Creations Live. Today, I'm actually unboxing our monthly or bi-monthly schedule of mealworms. I ordered a little bit more this time. I normally order around 100,000 mealworms every 2 to 3 weeks, but this time I wanted to kind of get a little bit ahead of the potential for delays of the holidays and everything. And 100,000 mealworms normally takes me a little while to unbox and stuff. And it's been a while since we've done like a YouTube live, so I figured I would just jump on and, we could chat geckos and talk to each other while we do the live. So what's going on, Yvette? Yvette, I returned your money, so that should be good. But you guys can also, reach out to me. You guys can also reach out to me if there's ever any issues. You know, my phone number is right here. But we were doing some giveaway type stuff, and then we actually weren't able to do that per the rules and regulations of TikTok and stuff. And so I returned the money to everybody who was participating in those events. So if there's any issues, of course, let me know. But I am going to be looking to try to do just in general more giveaway stuff. I would like some kind of opportunity to do financially beneficial giveaways. So maybe that's if you join our Patreon or if you're a member of our channel, then you automatically get entered into a giveaway once a week. So we could do a giveaway once a week, especially if we have enough people that are members of our channel and stuff, and you basically get entered into that giveaway every single week, which is pretty low investment cost. So I'm going to look into stuff like that. But as far as what we were trying to do on TikTok with our giveaway scheme, I just don't think that was going to work long term. And yeah, it didn't work long term. So, back to the drawing board. But Code Red Reptiles, what's going on? Yeah, I know. We were doing spin the wheel type stuff on TikTok, and it was so fun, but can't do them. So anyway, each of the bundles that you see on the picture are 10,000 mealworms per box. And so what I like to do is unbox 30,000 mealworms at a time, and then I will remove the newspaper. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like. But I'll put 30,000 mealworms into a plastic tub. First, I would check to make sure all your mealworms are alive, which at this time of year right now is not that big of a deal. Everything is pretty much alive this time of year, but you still want to make sure and check. And so now there's 30,000 mealworms in here. So now it's just a matter of playing with newspaper, which this is where I get a lot of my packing newspaper actually, is from my Rainbow orders. So if you want, you could actually save this newspaper and use it for shipping reptiles. So we're also going to start doing more Instagram lives and stuff. I'm just getting way back into social media now. Now that we have Tatum, we have Angie, we have all the helpers that have been helping around here, it's definitely freeing me up more. Now we're kind of caught up, especially with the winter schedule, not really shipping or anything. It gives me a chance to catch up on everything that we need to do and jump back into social media hardcore. I had 2,000 delivered today. Thought that was a lot. Yeah, we normally get, I was just saying at the beginning of this video, we normally get 100,000 about twice a month, maybe once every 3 weeks, let's say. So 100,000 every 3 weeks. But with the holidays coming up and possible delays, I just wanted to make sure that we were well set. You know what I mean? And so I ordered a little bit extra this time. Shout out to rainbowmealworms.net, which honestly, Rainbow is the best. I haven't come across any company that can match the pricing, the customer service, even just the pricing. Because let's face it, all people care about is the pricing when it comes to feeders. And there's nobody that matches the pricing. So I am a diehard Rainbow lover and supporter. So I'm trying to get a mealworm farm started. Yeah, you could do that. I tried that before in the past, but on the scale as large as I need it, it would be way too much work than is really worth the hassle for me right now, you know. But if you're on a little bit of a smaller scale, it could definitely be beneficial. But the other thing is, I just really don't like working with bugs. Like, I'm getting over a cold, so my nasal passages are a little, like, congested to begin with. But even if I wasn't, mealworms and dubia roaches, when I'm breathing that stuff in, it just does not make me feel good. Starts to make me feel itchy and just sick and nasty. So happy to see you. Been a while. I know, my friend. Good to see you too. Bam Bam, I usually order 20,000 bulk, and that lasts 2 to 3 months. Yeah, that's the way to go. If you can order bulk and just stock it in your refrigerator, golly, that is the way to go for sure. Kyle Dell, what's going on, man? So I'm very excited. We have a bunch of videos that are underway for leopard geckos, because that's what most people on this channel care about. But also sailfins. You know, we're starting to do some sailfin dragon training with our sailfin dragons, and that's really fun. I am going to start limiting myself to, I'm going to downsize again. So I downsized the first time, and then I got a skink, I got some bearded dragons, then I upsized a little bit. Now I'm getting ready to downsize again because I really just want to focus on leopard geckos. I might even sell all of my gargoyle geckos. Honestly, guys, we have some nice gargoyle geckos, but I might even sell all of them. And you'll see me start to post some pictures of them on Instagram and Facebook over the next couple of days. I'm not completely sure that I want to sell the breeders, because breeders are really valuable for gargoyle geckos specifically, because they're kind of rare to see them sold. But I don't know. I'm just way more passionate about leopard geckos. And we have a lot of really cool projects right now. We have a ton. Guys, I got to do a video on it. We got a ton of black knights that are breeding right now. And so there's black knight, like Mandarin crosses in there, black knight to black knight Afghanicus Generation 2s. There's a whole bunch of really cool stuff. And then our tangerines. So this year, we're only going to be focusing on breeding variations of tangerine, variations of black knight, and variations of our Mr. Freeze lavender project. So that's really what we're focusing on breeding this year. Actually, I lied. We have some super giant stuff that's going to be in the mix of that. And then also some like wild type stuff like Turkmenicus. But not much, guys. I'm really hammering away in 2024 for tangerines and black knights. So, yeah, I have about 20 geckos, so I will probably try out a mealworm farm, and if it doesn't work, then I'll definitely go. Yeah, so here's the problem with breeding your own mealworms. So the issue with breeding your own mealworms, you start, let's say hypothetically you start with 20,000 mealworms and you turn those into like 10,000 beetles, right? Because some are going to die and all that kind of stuff. Let's just say it's like 10,000 beetles that you're getting started with, which is that's a lot of beetles. So 10,000 beetles, you're going to need to wait a few weeks for those beetles to lay eggs. Then you're going to wait a few months. Hear me out here. A few months for those eggs to turn into big enough worms for your gecko to eat. And then when they're big enough for your gecko to eat, in that process, you have to sift out the sheds because they're going to be shedding a lot. You have to sift out the poop. You have to sift out old food that went bad and all that kind of stuff. It is a huge headache, honestly, if you're not set up for it on mass scale. On a small scale, I suppose it's not that big of a deal. But again, for me, to make the amount of mealworms that I need would be an unearthly amount of time, money, investment, and space. Because I did think about it. I was going to breed mealworms with our rats, like in our rat shed. But nah, man. I mean, when you buy them from rainbowmealworms.net, they're literally fractions of pennies on the dollar. Like literally, one mealworm I think is like 0.0000001 cents or something like that. And you could just store them in the refrigerator. So here's what I'm going to do. Getting ready to store them in the refrigerator. Oh, actually, so this is, I normally don't do this. I normally don't do this. I normally do 20,000. And then 20,000 will go in one of these. So 20,000 will go in one of these. I think you guys have seen my videos, but this is 30,000 now. And 30,000 is too much, so I'm only going to fill this like 3/4 of the way. Maybe even halfway. So you see that? This is filled about halfway. And this, I normally do 20,000, and this is probably close to 20,000 right here. It might be a little bit more towards the 15, but yeah, it could be close to 20 right here. And then this will go into the fridge. And then I have labels for the dates, just so I know when we got these. Let me see if I have like another half empty one that I could dump these in. Yeah, actually I do. So this one's like half empty. So I can just put all these mealworms in here. Yeah, perfect. Cool. So now all these mealworms are going in here. We'll slap a date on this as well. And actually, I have 2 fridges, and I'm going to switch them. Oh, and that doesn't matter, actually. I could do 2 in there and then 2 in the next fridge. So what I discovered when dealing with putting vast amounts of mealworms into a refrigerator, if you put more than, let's say more than like 80,000, if you put more than 80,000 mealworms into a refrigerator, what I was experiencing was all of those mealworms create a ton of friction and heat. And so I was putting like 120,000 mealworms into the fridge. And then the fridge was not getting cold. The fridge was staying warm. And then the mealworms were sweating, getting black, and dying at the very bottom of those trays. And so now what I do is I have 2 refrigerators, and I'll put 1 tub in one refrigerator, then another tub in the other refrigerator. So 20,000, 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. And then each fridge will max out. I mean, I only have 150,000 mealworms today. So each fridge will max out only on an additional an additional like 70,000 mealworms. And if you have mealworms in the fridge already, that is okay as long as those mealworms are cold and not creating friction. It's the new mealworms that go into the fridge that are still warm and creating friction. That's what messes up the ecosystem. So before this gets too crowded, I'm going to take these boxes and throw them out back. So I'll be back. I'll be back, as Arnold says. I'm just going to throw this newspaper away, throw the boxes away. All right, one down. 1, 2, 3. Oh, cool. Only 4 more to go. I was going to say 5 more to go, but 1 down and 4 more to go. I want those pure fasciolatus. Yeah, we probably will have some pure fascios. But with the holiday, though, to purchase them. Yeah, if you're talking about us, Bam Bam, you can still purchase on the holiday, and then we'll just ship January 9th, when January 9th comes back around. Now, that being said, I see a lot of people still shipping. Big name breeders still shipping. So, in the future, maybe in future years, I will ship during the winter period as I get more like comfortable with that and see other people's experiences with that. And when I mean big name breeders shipping, I mean they're shipping a lot, not just like one package. I mean, we're talking about like dozens of packages over this period where it's suggested not to ship. Now, there's lots of periods in the year that are suggested not to ship, but the winter period, I think, is probably the most one that you don't want to ship on because of the back-to-back holidays, the cold weather, and the likelihood for delays. But I mean, it is what it is. So anyway, we are going to resume shipping on January 9th, which is the recommended date to resume shipping. In that time, actually, we have a show. Now that I think about it, we have a show before that time. We're going to be in Pomona, California, before I can ship again. But during this time when I'm not shipping, I'm still taking orders, and I'm just going to use this time to get back on the bandwagon for social media content and all that kind of stuff. So, well, now I understand what Rainbow has to go through. Yeah, but see, and this is where like professional help comes in. For example, why do pet stores buy leopard geckos or crested geckos? They're so easy to breed. Why don't they just do it themselves? It's time, money management. Not everything is worth your time for your specific business. Pet stores actually benefit by not being breeders and just bringing in high quality, trusted animals from people like myself that are wanting to be focused on breeding, because it's time, money, and effort that they don't have to worry about, because there's a lot of things that go into breeding and a lot of space that gets tied up with breeding when they could be using that time and that space for promoting their store, for talking to customers, for making sales. And that's where you have to decide, what business do I want to go in, you know? So the thing with Rainbow, if you make your own mealworms, let's say you make your own mealworms for $100 a year. Let's say it only costs you $100 a year, but it costs you, let's just say like 40 hours a year to breed, raise, sift, and take care of those mealworms. And it only saved you If it only saved you $100, you have to ask yourself, is 40 hours of my time worth me saving $100? That's the question that you have to ask yourself as you go from hobbyist to breeder. And this is why small businesses exist, you know? Thankfully, my father-in-law is here this weekend, and he helped Whitney fix her car for free, basically, right? I mean, we're going to pay him for the parts, but we're not necessarily like paying him for labor, right? Which is the benefit of working with family. So he was very gracious in doing that. But if it wasn't for him, I don't have the time, for me to put in the time to research those things and figure out how to fix the issues with the car would actually be a negative towards my financial prosperity, if that makes sense. Because I could just pay someone who knows what they are doing to do it, and with the hours that I would have put into trying to learn how to do this task, which for me, as an unexperienced person, would have been 10 times the amount of hours that my father-in-law put in, it just wouldn't have been worth it. It would have been more worth it for me just to pay a professional to do it, and instead spend those 20 hours on selling leopard geckos or doing things that are going to make money to pay for the professional of the fixer of the car, the mechanic, to do it, you know? So same thing with Rainbow. They're professionals. They are set up for this. They have a giant facility which is set up specifically for breeding insects, and everything in their facility, from their employees to their materials to their shipping rates and all of that, it's all catered to making the process cheap and efficient for you as a customer. You know what I mean? So anyway, shout out to my father-in-law for fixing my wife's car. He probably spent like 20 hours fixing like 3 different issues over the entire weekend. And I actually did help him with one issue one day. And that was cool. You know, it's, especially for men, like, it's really fun to work with your hands, right? And to feel like you fixed something, or to feel like you understand how the ins and outs of something work. But yeah, I mean, I just have to ask myself, like, if he wasn't here, I would have to ask myself, is me spending 30, 40 hours trying to figure out how to fix something on my own and possibly not even fixing it or making it worse, is that worth all of that time? Or should I just pay a professional, as much money as that might be, and put that time instead into selling more animals and making money to pay for the repair, which is something that I'm good at. Like that's what I'm good at. That's what I'm catered to, right? So Exotic World, all theater. Rob, do you feed them or just chill in the fridge? No, we absolutely feed them. A matter of fact, we get a lot of compliments how big and plump and fluffy like our leopard geckos are when we send them out, or even at shows. We feed our leopard geckos as much as they'll eat when they're growing. When they're growing, as much as they'll eat, they will get. Looking thick, king. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the wrong kind of thick. I mean, my New Year's resolution, I don't know what your guys' New Year's resolution is, but my New Year's resolution, start jogging again, getting back to the gym, working out a little bit, and then changing my diet because I need to like get healthier again. So Side FPS, watching from the Philippines. Sir, you're one of the breeders I look up to. Well, thank you so much, man. I was just watching some Indonesian Filipino breeders today, and I was going to do a commentary on their video. So keep an eye out for that, because I think it's always fun to see how other cultures and other breeders do it. And yeah, I just want to make leopard gecko content because I think that's lacking right now. So Rainbow Mealworms Compton, yeah. For sure, that they are. I remember when I found out they were in Compton, I was like, dang, all right, respect. What's going on, Chucky? Rob M. No, not the Leos, the mealworms. Oh, okay. So no, when you refrigerate your mealworms, and I'll get people that push back with me on this, but I can guarantee you, I've been doing this for 6 years the exact same way. You don't need to feed them. You don't need to water them. As long as you use them within 3 months, and I like to use them before 2 months is up, and as long as you use osteoform and vionate supplements, those mealworms have all the nutrition they need for the leopard geckos, and you do not, I repeat, you do not need to gut load them. Now, if you want to gut load them, by all means, gut load them. But I really can't stand the people that are like, oh, you absolutely have to gut load them. No, that's not true. That's just actually not true. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not against gut loading. I'm just saying I'm against people trying to manipulate the truth because it fits what they want you to do. See, I don't want you to do anything. I don't want you to not gut load your mealworms. I'm just telling you, by all means, you don't have to. When they go into that like refrigerated state, they're good. And then probably one of the reasons that we don't have to is because we do use the best, and I'll go on record saying this is old school, the best calcium and vitamin supplement ever, which is osteoform and vionate. Everybody from Matt Baronic to Ron Tremper to I think Garrick DeMeyer and all of the old school big breeders that I know, that I've watched videos from, Suburban Geckos, all of them swear by osteoform and vionate, except for Seth at Huff's Herbs. He uses the Rectical and I think Herptivite. If you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what he uses, and he says it doesn't make a difference. Oh, and Gecko Boa as well. For what that's worth, the most respected guy in the leopard gecko scene, Gecko Boa, swears by osteoform and vionate combo. Now he actually uses a 1-to-2 ratio. Ron Tremper did a 1-to-3. Matt did a 1-to-4. And then he also did a 1 ratio of calcium sand, which is really weird. But anyway, that's what he did. Suburban Geckos does a 1-to-3. And I do a 1-to-3. 1-to-3, I've used it for 4 years. Amazing. No complaints whatsoever. Yes, sir. Please keep your morph content. I'm just getting into leopard gecko. I have 2, and I'm waiting on a female to ovulate. Congratulations. Congratulations. She definitely pooped. I must have scared an accident. Cool. All right, more mealworms to unload here. My wife's dad is gangster, though. I got to give it up to him. He actually worked on the team. He has like 40 patents in his name. He actually worked on the team that invented the Pentium chip. I think that's the way he phrased it to me. But anyway, I go over to their house, and he has like 40 patents. He's been retired since he was like 40 years old, but obviously he stays busy and works and creates his own revenue through his own ways. But I'm just saying, he's a gangster. He was able to generate a lot of money early on, live off that money. He's an engineer, very smart guy. So very thankful that he was over here this weekend. He could fix like anything. He just has that brain that just like understands how it needs to be done, you know? All right, another 30,000 mealworms unboxed. So yeah, we're gonna do more TikTok lives and Instagram lives, just showing off animals. Maybe we'll do some auctions. I think auctions are okay. Raffles are not okay, but auctions and giveaways, I think they're okay. If you look at Morph Menagerie, Morph Menagerie has a bunch of auctions on their YouTube channel. But my fear with that is if I was to do something like that, I would be worried that it would jeopardize my main channel. So maybe I'll create a separate channel where we will do like auctions and stuff like that, you know? And as long as those two channels can be kept completely separate in the eyes of YouTube, then one channel doesn't risk the other channel's success, you know? Is it normal for fasciolatus to weigh less than macularis? They're a little bit more slender of a build of a gecko in general, but they're also longer. So to answer your question, yes, they might, you know, inch for inch, they're going to be a little bit more slender than a macularis. But pound for pound, they should be pretty close to the same. Yeah, I mean, they should be pretty close to the same in general. So I have been trying to fatten her up. Now, here's something to keep in mind. Everybody who is breeding pure fasciolatus, pure afghanicus, pure macularis, pure turkmenicus, pure sapornensis, whatever the new one is, right? Anyone who's breeding those is not outcrossing them. They're breeding them to each other. So, for example, if you get fasciolatus from me, and then you get fasciolatus from gecko boa, you're getting the same lines of fasciolatus because I got my fasciolatus from gecko boa. For the pure stuff, of course, we have our Mr. Freeze, Max Snow, High Lavender Phase fasciolatuses, right? But those are not pure. Those are outcrossed. But if you're looking at pure stuff, there's only so much pure stuff in the hobby. And if you go to Suburban Gecko, guess where he got his pure stuff from? If you go to Geckos, etc., guess where he got his pure stuff from? All of these guys got their pure stuff from the same sources. So why do I mention this? Because Code Red Reptiles is asking about small geckos. And whenever you breed any animal, there's always a chance for genetic defects and runts. But when you are inbreeding animals, like we do in the leopard gecko hobby, because they all came from the same place. All tangerines came from the same lineage. All Black Knight came from the same lineage. All wild types came from the same lineages that were originally imported, right? And for 40 years, we've been breeding these animals to each other, thinking that we're outcrossing and doing different lines and stuff like that, when in reality you have no idea. If you buy a tangerine from Florida and you buy a tangerine from California, there is a high likelihood those two tangerines are 25% or more related, just for the fact that they are tangerines. And so the same goes even more for rare species and subspecies like the fasciolatus and afghanicus, things that people aren't working with as much. There's an even higher level of inbreeding going on with those. So the main thing that I use subspecies for is outcrossing. So Max Snow, fasciolatus, great project. Black Knight, afghanicus, great project. Supergiant, turkmenicus, great project, because turkmenicuses are pretty good, pretty big, you know what I mean? So that's my recommended way to go about using subspecies. Auctions all the time on YouTube in Snake World. Yeah, no, definitely. My macularis weighs 67. Leonardo, what's going on, Leonardo? I know you don't ship to the Philippines, but do you have any idea if maybe one of your geckos reached here already? I really don't think so. I haven't sold to anybody that I know would have sent geckos over there. And it's not impossible to get geckos to the Philippines. It's just really expensive. It's like $1,000. It's like minimum $1,000. So if somebody, like people in the Philippines really want our geckos, I would love to do that because my mom is Filipino #1, and so I have a passion for the Filipino people. And then, but the thing is, we have to go about all the proper channels and all the proper paperwork, which is very expensive. And you're looking at $1,000 or more in most cases. So, how do you breed mealworms? If you do a YouTube search for how to breed mealworms, there's a lot of good videos out there. A lot better than what I can explain in 5 minutes. And just watch those videos and you're going to see they're pretty easy to breed. It's just you need space and you also need to be okay with sifting them. Sifting them is the part that I'm just not okay with, which is why I stopped breeding dubia roaches. Breeding dubia roaches is the easiest thing in the world. Sifting dubia roaches is the most annoying thing in the world to me. So I would rather spend my time selling geckos rather than selling dubia roaches, because when I was sifting dubia roaches, man, it was making me all kinds of itchy, sneezy, sniffly. And even though it's only like, a few hours a month, 5 to 6 hours a month of sifting them on large scale when you're breeding a lot, that's the worst 5 to 6 hours of my month. So I gave those up a long time ago. Then my friend gave me some bearded dragons and gave me more roach colonies. But now I don't sift roaches. I don't sift them. I just pull them when they're big enough for feeding. I just pull them and feed them to my sailfins. You'll see. I have some sailfin feeding videos coming out like tonight or tomorrow. I don't work with blue eye rainwater. No, I only have Bell and Tremper right now. We do breed rats, yes. I'm het Filipino. Yeah, my mom grew up in Cebu. She didn't move here to the United States until she was 25 or so. And do you know what profession she worked in all of her life? Guess. If you know Filipinos, you'll be able to guess this 100%. December and none of my geckos are ovulating. Yeah, it can take time. I would say the average is January through April when geckos start. Notice my key word, start. Most geckos start January through April, but you will get some that start other times of year. Like I have, I don't know, like 20 groups breeding right now. So I have like 40 girls breeding right now. No, more. I have more than 40 girls. 10, 20, like 30. I have like 80 or 90 girls breeding right now. And they're all Black Knight and Tangerine. There's like 1 or 2 wild type groups in there as well. But yeah, it just depends. Every girl is gonna start breeding at certain times of year. I may or may not have a lead into a new morph. That'd be cool. Okay, so rat breeding. I actually don't mind it. Like, I have better things to do with my time, like, because my main business is not rats. My main business is animals, selling reptiles. So every hour I spend cleaning rats is an hour that I could be spending selling animals. So that's why I really don't like it. But when it comes down to it, there's something a little bit peaceful about cleaning rats. because you take a tub that's dirty, you pull all the babies out, the babies are all cute, you pull the adults out, the adults are all nice, rats are not mean creatures, you know, for the most part, and then you refresh them, you give them their food, you give them their water. There's definitely something peaceful, a weird peaceful feeling in cleaning rats. Now, I don't think I would want to do it every day, I don't think I would want to do more than 2 hours a day. Like, if I was a rat breeder full time, I would not want to clean for more than 2 hours a day. But those 2 hours that you clean are actually a little bit therapeutic. Like, it's a peaceful, enjoying process to a certain degree. Now, if you're doing 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day of rats, that would not be a peaceful process. Your back would be killing you, your nasals would be killing you, everything would be killing you at that point. So I think it's about how much time you're actually putting into it. But there's something fun about breeding rats, and they have lots of colors, so I'll mix and match the different colors of rats and stuff like that, just like geckos, and it's kind of fun picking out, different groups of rats to breed together. So, yep, Yvette and SY are correct. So the type of rats that everybody has in the American hobby are, I think they're European rats. Because there are different kinds of rats. All right, so there's approximately another 20,000. We'll slap a label on this. And actually, this is probably only like, they might be like 15,000 each, so this is probably like 15,000 each, but we have lots of these little tubs, so we're not limited on space, so I'm actually going to just put them in like 15,000s at a time. That should be fine. All right, I'm going to go toss. You should see our bulk trash right now. We have bulk trash once a month. Our bulk trash is ridiculous. The amount of cardboard we have, the amount of garbage we have is crazy. So, yeah, Norwegian rats. I think that sounds right. A lot are using ASF. They don't grow. Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting debates on ASFs being better for ball pythons. The snakes eating more regularly, the vitamin nutritional levels of ASFs compared to regular rats. The problem is, here's the problem. ASFs are banned in certain places in the United States. And also, ASFs are rare and very expensive. Very expensive. I thought about converting my entire collection over to frozen thawed ASF, but at $5 a rat, $5 a rat, I would go broke quicker than anything if I was to feed frozen thawed ASF. And that's if you can even find a supplier that can actually consistently supply you. And then if you get your collection hooked on ASF, they get stuck on it and don't want to go back to rats. These are the reasons why nobody converts to ASF. And these are the reasons why I've never, ever done ASF. Even the problematic eaters that I have in my collection, especially if they're babies, I'll just assist feed them. If they're adults, I'll just let them wait until they're ready to eat, and eventually they'll eat again. But I don't feed mice, and I don't feed rats, because I don't want any of my snakes becoming reliant upon mice or ASF. I want them only used to rats, and that's good for two reasons. Number one, they get used to eating what I have a steady supply of. And then number two, they get used to eating a food that everybody in the hobby prefers that they eat. So let's say I had a Pompeii. Do you guys know what a Pompeii is? It's still like a $5,000, $10,000 snake, right? If you can find it. So I have a $10,000 snake that is stuck on ASFs, and I have a $10,000 snake that is eating regular rats. And I present you the offer. Do you want the snake that is eating ASFs, or do you want the snake that is eating rats? I bet you everybody would choose the snake that's eating rats, because everybody knows the snake that's eating ASFs has a higher likelihood of being stuck on ASFs and not eating rats, and therefore giving you problems. So this is why people in the hobby don't like buying animals that are fed ASFs. So I even go so far as to not even have the smell of mice or ASFs anywhere near my snake room. So I've never brought a mouse, maybe once, like 3 years ago, but in the last 3 years, I have not brought a mouse into my snake room or my rat room. And I have not brought an ASF into my snake room or my rat room. I just don't touch them. I want nothing to do with them. I want to get all of my snakes eating regular rats. And for the most part, that's good. Like, I really don't have any major issues right now. You know, the normal issues that you go through, like I have some snakes that are a little picky here and there, some babies that don't get on food right away, but I fix those with other methods. Rather than changing the food item, I change something else in the environment to make them eat, or eventually they just start eating again, you know? Yeah, I'm going to do a video on all our super giants for sure. I don't work with rainwater right now because I'm going to say something that's going to make some people mad, but I don't think rainwater has anything beneficial to offer right now compared to Tremper or Bell. I do like Tremper and I do like Bell. They do Tremper and Bell do two different things. Bell is a much more lighter, neon-y colored animal, and Tremper is a much more richer, saturated animal. And then rainwater is just like something in between. So personally, I don't do rainwater. I just do Tremper and Bell. It's not to say that I will never work with rainwater or would discourage. I would never discourage people from working with rainwater, but you asked me my reason, right? And that's my reason is, and the other reason is everything in my collection is Tremper until I I paid for it, or I am paying for it. For Norman's collection, he had a lot of Bell. And that really jump-started my Bell. I mean, I had 1 or 2 Bells before Norman's collection, but Norman's collection really increased our Bell count higher, I should say. I think I still only have, 10 to 15 Bell project animals, and I have 1,000 Tremper project animals, you know what I mean? So, but anyway, before I started getting into Bells, the reason that I liked having Tremper is, number one, it's the most common. So most people are looking for it. Number two, everything in my collection is based around Tremper. So I could literally take any gecko off the shelf and breed it to each other, and I don't have to worry about crossing albino strains and stuff like that. So that's why. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to crap on any rainwater people. I'm just trying to be realistic with my answer. You know what I mean? And maybe someone shows me something that rainwater does better, right? But until I see something that rainwater does better than Tremper or Bell, you're just working with a morph that is not as common, not as popular, not as far along, and does the same or less than Tremper, right? That's kind of the way. Yeah, African soft fur, that's what it is. So Derpy. So I'm going to go throw this stuff away real quick, and I'll be right back. I might be getting pins made of Derpy. We'll see. I have we'll see. I might have pins being made of Derpy and other geckos like in our collection that we're going to start announcing by name. So because there's a lot of people that like to follow geckos by names. I'll be back in 2 minutes just throwing this out. All right, let's cut these boxes open real quick. One of my favorite parts is like cutting the boxes open. Or I should say cutting this stuff off of the boxes in particular. So Derpy was doing good. Derpy was doing good. You remember Derpy had like skeletal facial deformation, right? Well, we checked on him this week, and he was looking a little bit like his facial skeleton that was growing into his face was messing with his eyes a little bit. So when he was younger, it wasn't an issue. Now that he's older, it might be becoming an issue. So we will see. We will let you know how the little derps does. But he is currently under watch right now, like a more frequent watch, to see how this facial development is going to continue to either affect or not affect the little guy, you know? And so that's the best information I can give right now. He's not doing bad, but he's not doing great right now. And so a couple more weeks, we will know a little bit more if this is going to be something that is unfixable in a case where like it would just be better to put him down, or if it's going to be something that is treatable and workable and fixable. So I have to unload all of these mealworms right now, but maybe when I'm done, I can show you my favorite leopard gecko. Actually, one of the leopard geckos it's hard to have a favorite, right? Because we have a lot of projects of leopard gecko. But I will show you, you guys know I like Black Knight, but my favorite morph of all time is Tangerine. And my second favorite, I would say, is probably like white and yellow Tangerine. So I'll show you one of our geckos that's on the way towards creating what I believe is going to be some of the best white and yellow Tangerine geckos out there. Where did I put him? That is the thing. I know he's here somewhere. Oh, here we go. Okay, now keep this in mind. This guy looks much better in person, but if you look at the oranges on this guy is only 50% tangerine. So what I did was I spent a couple of years making the best tangerines that I could, and then the best white and yellows that I could. And just this last year, I started combining them, right? And this is the product of one of those in only the first generation. Now, when this guy breeds back to a pure tangerine, I mean, it's really hard to see, but his oranges come through pretty good, but it's even nicer in person if you could picture that. So picture his oranges being nicer in person, and then on top of that, this guy is only 50% tangerine. Like look how deep those oranges come through, and he's only 50% tangerine. So imagine if we take him and breed him to a pure tangerine and make white and yellow tangerines that way, this guy's going to be phenomenal. Actually, if you want a better shot of this guy, he's on our Instagram. You can see him on our Instagram page. But he's still young. Now, we have some others that are very similar to him that are actually breeding right now, but they're not as, I would say they're not as good as him, but they're very similar. Like they might make animals that are even better. They're going to make animals that are better than him for sure, because they're breeding with 100% tangerine animals right now. Derpy only has 5 emotions. Happy, derp, derp, derp. I got Derpy in quarantine right now. I don't want to pull him out because then I'll have to wash my hands and all that. Maybe next episode, though. The other thing that I'm wondering about Derpy, and this is why I say we're gonna see if this is related to his bone structure issue or something else. But his eye was a little bit watery, and that was either because his bones are pushing on his eye as his skeleton grows, or because he might have like a slight eye infection. And so I have some medication. We're going to be keeping an eye on him. I'm going to be treating him with ofloxacin, which is a basic eye infection medication for leopard geckos or reptiles as a whole. And if it proves to be an eye infection, then we're good. Once the infection is cured, we're good. But there might be something linked to the way his face is growing into his eye. The way his face is growing into his eye looks like it might be putting pressure on the eye, which is causing for irritation to the eye, you know? So, yeah, the koi, actually, maybe we will call that the Koi Project, but that's a name that one of our workers, Angie, actually named him like Koi or something like that. I'll be right back. Okay, yeah, our medicine for little Derpy is in, so we will we'll treat him with the antibiotics and see if first it is like a slight eye infection or something, and if that doesn't work, then it would probably just be the pressure of his skull forming around his eye in that weird shape, and that might not be good. If that continues, that might be means to having to put him down. But he will live on forever as a mascot. And we will make shirts and pins and all that kind of stuff for him. So let's hope Derpy can get through this so that he can become the new face of Geeky Gecko Creations. I agree. Everybody loves Derpy. How much total weight do you think those metal shelves behind you hold? Oh, they hold a ton. And they're from Sam's Club. I think each shelf is advertised to hold like 500 pounds. Don't quote me on that, but it's a lot. It is a lot of weight. And they're only $90 per shelf. I'm glad you guys are here to entertain me or help keep me entertained during my mealworm shift. Maybe we'll switch over to Instagram too, because I haven't done anything on Instagram in a while. So I want to start doing more Instagram stuff as well. But we are getting back to a place where I have the time now to start like editing more videos and doing more social media content again. So definitely should be rocking and rolling with that. Sailfins are doing great. We're going to be probably downsizing our skink. So I thought I wanted to work with blue tongue skinks. And there was a local person that had a female that they were trying to rehome. So I got an adult female, built a cage for her. You guys know her. Her name's Beatrice. And I still like her for educational purposes, like school events and stuff like that. But when you have 1,000+ geckos, like leopard geckos, you really have to make up your mind, where do you want to spend your time and your money? And I think I just really want to spend it with geckos, guys. I just love leopard geckos too much, and I just want to invest into the future of the leopard gecko hobby, becoming more social, more interactive. It will never become less judgmental. It will always be judgmental. But if the non-judgmental people can rally together more and more, or at least have a place or a platform that they can rally together, such as this, I think that will change the status quo of the judgmental people and breeders in the hobby right now. So that's what I'm going to continue working towards. And I think we are seeing success with that already, you know? Have you ever had the chance to visit the Philippines? Yeah, when I was 6. Oceans as clear and blue as the sky. Beautiful. I was such a picky eater growing up. This is how spoiled I was. I was such a picky eater. When we went to the Philippines, all they had was like the knockoff cereal brands, you know what I mean? And I was just young and picky, and I wouldn't eat Like I wouldn't eat a lot while I was there because everything was different to me than in America, you know? But now that I'm older, I actually buy all the knockoff stuff because it's actually more cost effective for essentially the same product. Random question, but how is the weather in Arizona? It was 71 today. It was in the 70s today, but it felt warmer because when the sun in Arizona shines, it really shines. And so even though the air temperature was 71, I don't know, it felt warmer than 71 for sure to me. And then when I got in my car was like 100 degrees because the sun shines into your car, creating a greenhouse effect. All right, so let's put away some more worms here. All right, let's label it. Got another about 15,000, 20,000 here. The other thing you got to keep in mind is every time you open your fridge, you're losing some of that cold air. So losing the cold air, plus the combination of the worms creating warm friction, is just not a good recipe. But you live and learn, right? I've already learned through that, so that's good. You miss your skink. Yeah, I'm probably going to be selling Beatrice. She's pretty cool. Honestly, the skink's nails freak me out a little bit. Like, they're kind of long. Like, what can I relate it to? It almost seems like mammal nails. Like a possum or a raccoon's nails or something like that. And it kind of freaks me out a little bit, to be honest, with the skinks. Now, you can cut the nails, of course, but just saying. Oh, yeah, the breeding community has tons of drama. So there's drama between keepers to other keepers, right? There are some keepers that are like, you need a 40-gallon, 100-gallon minimum for your leopard geckos. And there's other keepers that are like, no, you could do a 10-gallon, a 20-gallon. Then they fight about lights and UVB and loose substrate versus hard substrate. So there's keeper to keeper drama. Then there's keeper to breeder drama, right? Keepers are like, no, you shouldn't be breeding them in tubs. You shouldn't be keeping them in racks. You shouldn't be feeding them only one food source. You shouldn't not be gut loading their food. There's all these things that keepers and breeders fight about. Then there's breeder to breeder drama. This is arguably the pettiest of the drama that goes on, and it's all centered around profits and money and people trying to make other people look bad because they want to make themselves look better. Even though the things that they do are viewed as bad by other people. And that's the biggest that's the biggest problem that I have with the breeder to breeder conflict. It's very hypocritical. If a keeper, like we interviewed Jessica's Animal Friends. Do you guys remember when we interviewed Jessica's Animal Friends? She does not support breeding at all. I mean, maybe she does now in the right circumstances, in naturalistic setups and all that stuff, but she does not support the mass production of breeding just for fun and just for morphs and all those kinds of things and overpopulating the market, right? And she brings up a lot of good points. I can't really fight those points, right? But when you have breeders that are fighting against other breeders, it's like the pot calling the kettle black, right? It's different levels of ethics that they're fighting on, when both breeders could be held as guilty according to ethics by somebody else. And the example of this is the example is breeders in general optimize efficiency over enrichment, right? All breeders optimize, in general, all breeders are going to optimize efficiency over enrichment. So all breeders have in common the fact that, now there are some breeders that breed in like enriching settings, but if you're a rack breeder, let me just say this. If you're a rack breeder and you're not providing UVB and you're not providing overhead heat and those kinds of things that are supplemental, beneficial, enriching towards the animal, all breeders who don't do that are guilty of lacking enrichment for their animal. And then all breeders are guilty of risking their animals' lives during shipping, because every single year things go wrong with shipping and animals die, animals drop their tails, animals get stressed out changing environments and going to different households, and then they die. That all happens for every breeder. And the goal of all of this is to make money and make different leopard geckos that are appeasing to us. So there's no other benefit other than it benefits your pocket and it benefits your it appeases your creative ability to make art with animals without the animal's permission, right? And so that is another thing that we're all guilty of as breeders, is we overpopulate. We do. You can't say that you don't. If you're a breeder, you're automatically overpopulating. You know why? If you go on Morph Market right now, there's 5,000 leopard geckos for sale. And not all 5,000 of those are going to find homes. And so if you're a breeder, you're contributing to all of these leopard geckos not finding homes. Does that make sense? Even if you are selling all of your geckos every single year, which doesn't happen. Nobody ever sells all their geckos every single year when they're making more than 500 geckos to individual customers, I should mention. If you're wholesaling, that's another ethical principle that all breeders are guilty of, right? Selling animals cheap, offloading animals cheap, just because they don't have space themselves, so they give it away or they sell it away, and the cycle goes around and around of this overpopulation of animals, and then some animals die in that process of overpopulation, right? It just naturally happens. So these are things that all breeders are guilty of. And then there's other things, of course, that all breeders are guilty of. But those are some of the big things that all breeders are guilty of. And then, so for breeders to be picking on each other when you're already guilty of these pretty monumentous things, such as overproduction of animals, the profitable production of animals, producing animals just for fun, shipping animals at the risk of the animal's life, putting animals in racks to make it easier to breed for profitability or the fun of creating different colored animals. Like, when everybody is already guilty of this level of whatever you want to call that, ethics, this level of ethical controversy, how are breeders who are all guilty of that going to nitpick at each other for other little smaller things, right? And so at the end of the day, the most petty level of drama is the breeder to breeder drama, because no breeder is necessarily better than another breeder. It takes a lot for one breeder to be worse than another breeder when you really, really think about it, compared to all the points that you have that are similar. Even if there's a couple points that are different, those couple points that are different, usually, not all the time, there are exceptions to this, obviously, but usually there is not enough difference in the things that breeders pick on each other for to actually justify condemning each other, or one breeder calling another breeder unethical or evil. Because technically, all breeding is unethical and evil to a certain extent, and you can't get away from that. Like, you just can't get away from that. If you view, and this also depends on how you view animals. If you view animals as humans, like having a right to life, liberty, and justice, then all breeders are evil. There's really no other way to put it. If you think leopard geckos have a right to life, liberty, and justice, all breeders are evil, because we deny them their freedom. We deny them their liberty. We deny them their justice. That's what all breeders do. The way that breeders justify their actions is by saying these are simple-minded creatures. These are reptilian-minded creatures that don't care about life, liberty, and justice in the way that humans care about life, liberty, and justice. And that's the way that breeders justify their own condemnable actions, and then therein condemn other breeders that they think are breaking whatever ethical standard that they think the animals should be kept in, even though they are breaking ethical standards themselves, depending on how you define an animal, right? It's the same with our meat production. If you saw how your food was produced, it would probably make you sick to your stomach. If you literally saw the cows getting slaughtered, the chickens living in small cages, the goats and the sheep, and if you saw the way that animals were kept so that you could be comfortable and you could wear a coat and you could eat your eggs and omelet and sausage breakfast, you would probably be disgusted. But out of sight, out of mind, right? And that's how breeders also get away with not holding themselves accountable, is they just don't show what goes on behind the scenes. And so that's why I've always been really upfront with like what goes on behind the scenes, how we run things, how we do things. Like, I'm not trying to be secretive. But most breeders, think about this, will never, ever show you behind the scenes, because they would be condemned and judged just as hard as the people that they are judging, you know? Even the good breeders, Gecko Boa never shows behind the scenes. And he's considered to be the most respectable breeder in the hobby, and nobody has ever even seen how he breeds his animals. He could be a gecko mill for all we know, but nobody knows because nobody's seen his stuff. Nobody is holding each other accountable. They just pick on the people that actually show behind the scenes, like we show behind the scenes, and they're like, oh, look at that, and that, without realizing that if somebody was to come into their facility, they too would get very critically judged, you know? And that's the pettiness, and that's the level of hypocrisy that goes on in the breeder to breeder drama. If I was to debate with Jessica, and Jessica was like, it's better for leopard geckos to have a 40-gallon and enrichment, I can't really argue her on that point. Like, I would just be like, you're right. Like, in my opinion, it is better for a leopard gecko to have a 40-gallon and enrichment. But the reason that I don't give a leopard gecko a 40-gallon and enrichment is because I'm a breeder, and there's other things that I need to focus on. I need to focus on hygiene, efficiency, cleanliness, space. Like I need to focus on all of those things on a mass scale, 1,000 geckos plus. And so in that case, a 40-gallon tank is just not going to be possible under today's circumstances to couple those two worlds. But I could still be honest enough to tell Jessica, you're right, Jessica, what you have going on is a higher level of ethical standard than what I or other breeders have going on. But other breeders want to view themselves as holier than thou, and some people won't admit that. What they do is they just try to point out other people's flaws, right? So, do you get different size mealworms? So every gecko that is a newborn, or every gecko that is a newborn, or every gecko that is usually older than 30 days younger than 30 days are going to get medium mealworms. And I'll have to do an update video on this because the way that we do things now is a little bit different than the way we used to do things like 2 years ago. But in general, 30 days and younger, medium mealworms. 30 days and older, as long as they're growing and they're not stunted or runty or anything like that, 30 days and older, large mealworms. All right, I'm going to throw this away real quick. I'll be right back. All right, number 4 out of 5. It's 40 in Utah. Wow. What's going on, Timothy? So Rainbow Mealworms has a mealworm called the giant mealworm. They're basically mealworms that did not pupate and turn into beetles. And honestly, I was using those for a little bit when they were sold out of like mediums and larges, but I don't like them. They're expensive to ship, and I just don't think there's really any benefit to them. I prefer larges and mediums, so I don't think it's hormones. It's just the geckos, the mealworms didn't pupate. So yeah, every social media place has drama for sure. Yeah, Davey says, I respect the fact that you're actually admitting this and telling this. That's how I've always tried to conduct the channel, because nobody wants to be judged. Nobody wants to be condemned. And I think there's way too much judging and condemning in a hobby that we all share guilt in, right? Now, I think there are potential cases where like there's clear animal abuse or neglect that people can speak up or speak out on. But if it's not clear, if it's like minor differences, like the size of an enclosure or food source, lighting source, like if there's multiple, like if the person is having success with it and it's not harming the animal, then we shouldn't be trying to condemn people. And the other thing to consider is the snake world. So take leopard geckos, for instance. A 6-quart tub is sometimes used as, in breeders' operations, is sometimes used as a subadult to an adult enclosure. A 6-quart tub, which is a fairly small tub, right? But if you really think about it, a 6-quart tub is about 1.5 times the average length of an adult leopard gecko, and it is about 75% wide of a leopard gecko's length. When you think about snakes, we keep snakes in tubs that are 50% their body size. Like, think about this for a second. We keep snakes in tubs that are shorter than their body size, so the snake can never actually even stretch out fully, long-wise, and then width-wise, it's about 25% or less than the animal's full length width-wise. And so if people are really going to get nitpicky at size of enclosure, I think we need to consider all the reptiles in the hobby and the different standards that we keep them in. Because, yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to pick on a gecko breeder for keeping an adult leopard gecko in a 6-quart tub, then you absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, you also have to condemn the ball python breeder who is breeding an animal in a tub that is less than the length of the animal, which is almost every single ball python breeder does that. So there it is. You know what I mean? Like, when you really, really think about it, all of these arguments are so hypocritical. So hypocritical. Let me give you one last hypocrisy that came to my attention recently. And I don't even know the full story of this. I will find out the full story of this, but I don't know the full story of this as of now. But I know enough about it to give you another example of hypocrisy. So apparently, recently, and again, when I say hypocrisy, I'm not trying to offend or condemn. I'm just trying to speak the truth of what it actually is, right? At some point, we're all hypocrites to some degree. You know what I mean? We try not to be, but other people sometimes need to point out to us, hey, if you're condemning this person, think about what you're doing that is condemnable, right? And that's very easy to get caught up in being hypocritical towards others. So anyway, there was something recently with crested gecko breeders and the Asian market. So I don't know the full story on this, but apparently there were certain people that were like condemning the Asian breeders for breeding in habitats that are too small. And if you know anything about Asian breeding, they do have a lower standard when it comes to enclosure size than the typical American market standard. So, a lot of American breeders we're condemning these Asian breeders for breeding in cages that are too small. But at the same time, they're selling to these Asian breeders because it makes them money. So do you see what's going on here? They try to point out the sins of somebody else to make themselves look good. But when it comes down to it, they're willing to sell their geckos into the hands of somebody that they're condemning because it is profitable. That's like the ultimate level of hypocrisy. And again, I don't know the full story on this, but I do know that this scenario that we're talking about right now does happen for sure, without a doubt, 100%. Now, Code Red says, I'm moving from tanks to racks. To be 100% honest with you, I was just talking to Tatum about this the other day, who is one of our other team members around here. It would be my dream to move every single gecko we have into some type of bioactive PVC enclosure, right? Like maybe not a tank, but like a bigger space that's bioactive, that looks nice. That would be my dream. And that's going to be something that I'm going to be working towards, but it's just not possible for me right now. Right now, I have to keep animals in tubs and in racks because the amount of animals that I need to work with, there's not enough space that I have to keep them in tanks or to keep them in cages. So if I had my way, I would do cages for everybody, bioactive for everybody. But some things you have to sacrifice as a breeder for the benefit of the success of the company, to be successful, you know? You are definitely right there. Hope you're doing good. What do you think about Tango Crush Firebolt Cross? I think that's cool. Firebolt is a bold stripe and tangerine and emerine. Well, no, it's really bold stripe and tangerine project. But you're going to get some emerines from that naturally because whenever you take tangerine and black pigment, it creates purple, which then creates green. So you're going to get some green pigment from that naturally. But yeah, I don't think you could go wrong with Tango Crush and Firebolt. I actually think that's a great pairing. It diversifies the tangerine genetics, and so you're not going to be inbreeding as much. And then also, it will make the animals look really cool because it's going to diversify their looks. It's always the snowflakes that need a safe space starting drama. Yeah. I'm going to try to make it out to the Pomona show. Oh, that would be cool, Bam Bam, if you can. Bam Bam, if you can, stop by. We'll be there for sure. I work a lot with Tango Crush. Added some firebolts. Message you on Instagram. Should I get a 10-gallon or 20-gallon? That's really up to you. Whatever you could afford. I mean, preferably, I would tell you get the 20-gallon. But if all you could afford and have space for is a 10-gallon, then that's fine also. Wow, it did that weird thing where it like jumps everything. Yeah, okay. I even see keepers saying, why are you picking them up by their tails? Yeah. So that's another big drama between keepers and breeders. That's not really a drama between breeders to breeders. Why? Because all breeders pick up their geckos by their tail. But the drama is between keepers and breeders. Keepers really do not like when you hold geckos by their tail. And I get it. Like I said, I can agree and understand when there's a more ethical way of doing something, but there's ethical and then there's possible, right? When you're working with 1,000 geckos and you're checking for ovulations and stuff like that, the absolute best way to do it is actually holding them by the base of the tail. If you're checking for ovulations by holding their body and prying their body back, the geckos actually don't like that. They like that less. That's actually more stressful for them than when you hold them by the tail. But I mean, I get it. I get why keepers have a problem with that, is because geckos can technically drop their tail. It's just, it's very unlikely when a breeder knows how to handle their geckos. It's very unlikely that that would ever happen. So. Well, we've been going for a hot minute here, huh? A hot minute. I'm actually going to, so here's what I'm going to do. I got 26% battery left. So we're going to kill it there. I'm actually going to jump onto Instagram real quick just to see who's on there and just to get something going for the last part of this live stream and the last part of this unboxing. So if you want to continue this conversation, let's head over to Instagram. I just want to check in with the Instagram peeps. If not, I will see you in another Geeky Gecko Creations YouTube video sometime soon on this channel, because we're going to be making a lot more videos, guys. I love you, appreciate you. Thank you so much. You guys are in my hearts, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, have a Geeky Gecko great day, guys. Head over to Instagram. I'll see you there. Peace.